Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. My name is Clay, and I wrote this new novel called Whisper Down the Lane. And it is a spooky psychological novel that delves into the satanic panic era of the 1980s and how it echoes out into our kind of current modern time. But like I'm saying, like probably like 2013. It was a total labor of love. I'm really excited to share it with you. Thank you very much for coming out, and thanks so much to the library for having me. I figured if it was all right with you, I would do like a reading from the book itself. And then maybe if we were so inclined, we could have a discussion afterwards, maybe a little Q&A. Totally up to you all. So if there are any questions that this spurs, write them down or kind of hold on to them, because we'll have a chat about it after this is all over. But I'm going to read from Whisper Down the Lane. And I figured I might as well start with the very first chapter. And I'm trying to think if there's any kind of introduction I want to do for the book itself without giving too much away. Basically, this book takes place in two timelines, 1983 and 2013. And when we're in 1983, we're with a character named Sean. And when we're in 2013, we're with a character named Richard. And the only thing I want to say other than that is that Sean in 1983 told a little white lie. And he told a lie about his kindergarten teacher. And that lie kind of echoed out and reverberated from his family, back to school, the local community, the city, the state, the country, and it all kind of dovetailed into the satanic panic era of the 80s. And then with Richard, surprisingly, the lies that this young boy Sean told 30 years ago are somehow mysteriously happening in real life to this man named Richard. The lies that Sean told are coming true 30 years later with this this adult named Richard. But I think even, you know, I'm gonna read deeper into the book just because this is a fun chapter for me to read, and I haven't read it in a while, so I might be a little rusty, forgive me. But this is a chapter from Sean's perspective. So this takes place in 1983. Without any further ado, this is Whisper Down the Lane. Here we go. If you're just now tuning in, you are watching Satan's Playground, Devil Worship in America. Manuel Cassavetes, soberly intoned, speaking directly to the camera. I would like to encourage parents to please make sure your children are not watching this unsupervised. The glare of the studio lights was too bright for Sean. He couldn't help but wince and squirm in his seat. His hair clung to his sweaty brow. His suit was itchy. His collar only grew tighter at his neck, his tie constricting around his throat. What we are about to hear is shocking, Mr. Cassavetes continued. It is heinous, but above all else, it is very, very real. Sean kept his attention on his host. Though we may never know what the exact number is, he said with scripted precision, as of this live broadcast, it is estimated that there are over 1 million practicing Satanists in the United States. 1 million. The mind can only reel at such a staggering figure. A woman from the studio audience actually gasped, using her hand to fan herself with Pentecostal fervor. I mean, this felt more like church services to Sean. Mr. Cassavetes preached his own televised form of fire and brimstone. The producers populated their pews with a motley assortment of audience members, churchgoers, self-professed devil worshippers, heavy metal fans, and school marms. I mean, a few of them even waved homemade signs. Keep Satan away from our babies. McDonald's donates to the devil. Ray Kroc gives 20% to Satan. The devil doesn't belong in our schools. From where Sean sat, they were a shapeless mass of silhouettes. I mean, he hardly understood why he was here. He only knew that the grown-ups had become very interested in his story. These devil worshippers are a highly organized, well-funded operation, wholly unknown to those around them, Mr. Cassavetes said. They could be members of your church, your school, your own family. They can be the parents of your children's classmates, politicians, or even police officers. The people you trust with our safety, our lives, they are everywhere. The moment the man with the headset announced that they were taking a commercial break, Mr. Cassavetes seemed like a completely different person. His body relaxed, all that fury faded. He was nothing but smiles now. I'm on fire tonight, he said to no one in particular, as a cluster of fussy assistants swarmed around him, powdering his temples and touching up his subtle eyeshadow. His unnaturally tan skin seemed incapable of perspiring. One assistant took a small, fine-toothed comb and groomed his mustache. That mustache, full-bodied, perfectly coiffed, was clearly Mr. Cassavetes' most distinguishing feature. Better pace yourself, the man with the headset said. 84 minutes to go, sir. Oh, you ain't seen nothing yet, Mr. Cassavetes said. He glanced over at Sean as his team continued to primp. And when the two of them made eye contact, Mr. Cassavetes gave Sean a wink. Just a little something between the two of them. Don't worry, kid, that glint in Mr. Cassavetes' eye seemed to say. We got this. Sean and his mother had originally been in the live studio audience in the front row. And at one point during the broadcast, Mr. Cassavetes had actually stepped down from the stage and addressed Sean directly. He placed a comforting hand on the boy's shoulder and squeezed, letting him know that the cameras were on both of them now, that all of the world was watching him. It was also their cue to know that their segment was coming up. Shortly after that, the man with the headset had ushered them on stage. Remember to breathe, he whispered to Sean just before leaving him alone with his mom. That was good advice. Sean nodded, repeating the sage words. Just remember to breathe, remember to breathe, remember to breathe. People swarmed around them until, just like that, they all scurried backstage. Sean glanced out at the audience. And we're back in 5, the man wearing the headset announced. All of their eyes, they were staring at him, licking their lips. 4, their glistening lips. And the man with the headset finally brought up 3 fingers, 2 fingers, 1. Mr. Cassavetes gave Sean another wink and then turned to the camera. Hello and welcome back to our show, he said. We have some very special guests joining us tonight. Mom hadn't let go of Sean's hand through the whole show. Her palms were sweating. She must have been nervous too, maybe even more nervous than Sean. Anytime anyone approached her from behind, she would startle. And it was happening more and more lately. Mom was afraid of everybody now. And who could blame her? Her son was the target of a secret network of Satan worshipers. The devil was everywhere, waiting for her to slip, to turn her back, to let him go. That is when the devil would pounce. That is when his devotees would take Sean away from her. I mean, she couldn't tell for sure who they were or how many of them there were, but she was positive that they were amongst them right now, hiding in the studio audience, perhaps even on the television crew. They look just like us, Mr. Cassavetes put it. They are everywhere. And they were here, watching her at that very moment, waiting. "We have a brave boy joining us tonight," Mr. Cassavetes announced to the people watching at home. "You may recognize Sean Crenshaw from the Greenfield 6 trial that has transfixed the nation. Sean is one of the innocent children who suffered at the hands of his own kindergarten teacher and 5 other faculty members who have been charged with satanic ritual abuse." Why did everybody keep calling him brave? I mean, he didn't feel brave. What had he done to deserve all of this attention? He wanted to take it all back. Everything that he had said. It felt wrong now, having all of these eyes on him. And he glanced over at his mother. She kept staring off into the audience, the sea of people. Her eyes never settled on one spot. They were always moving, never focusing. She hadn't eaten recently. She was looking thin. Her cheekbones poked out through her cheeks as her eyes sank back. It was just her and him against the world, just her and him against the devil. "Thank you for agreeing to be here tonight, Sean," Mr. Cassavetes said as he leaned in. "Do you mind if I call you Sean? I mean, speaking out like this takes courage. Courage a child your age should never have to show." Cassavetes turned away from Sean and faced the camera. "But the world is never just, is it? Out of the mouths of babes, as it says in scripture." Now, there were so many eyes. The eyes in the audience, the camera even, that glass eye staring. "How are you feeling, Sean? Are you scared? It's okay to be scared. I would be if I were in your shoes. But I want you to know you're safe here with me." Sean nodded. "Now, Sean," Mr. Cassavetes started, just as he told him he would when they prepped earlier for this backstage that afternoon. "In your own words, as best as you can you describe how your teacher brought Satan into your classroom?" Sean nodded again. "He made us sit in a circle and told us to close our eyes. He made us sing a song he taught us with funny words. It was so easy saying these words. I mean, he had said them so many times before. The more he spoke, the more he noticed how the audience reacted. A woman brought her hand up to her mouth, stifling a gasp. Another woman's eyes glistened with tears. So many distraught faces, all of them saying, 'Poor you, how brave.' I want to remind our viewers that there have been multiple reports of grave desecrations, graffiti of occult symbols." Cassavetes had to keep the pace building without going too far. So he quickly pivoted, crossing his arms and pinching his chin as if to summon a question from somewhere deep within his valiant heart. "Sean, if you can, I'm curious. What made you take part in these terrible things? Why didn't you speak up? Tell your mother?" Because, what was Sean supposed to say again? Because he couldn't remember. Because he was my teacher. And I'm going to end there. Ooh. Thank you very much, everybody. That is Whisper Down the Lane.